πάει εδώ. Ωραία.
Ένα, Okay. Good morning, everyone. We're going to take this in English. I'm Vladimiros Peilivanidis from ONETHER Digital. We specialize in blockchain solutions. And today we're going to talk about decentralization. I know that maybe if you've been around yesterday or today, there's going to be some panels and discussions about blockchain technology or NFTs or whatnot. But in this case, we're going to try to kind of dive deeper and see whether decentralization is actually something that's feasible or is just like a marketing trick or a hype or a buzzword today. So I would like to introduce our speakers today. We have a diverse kind of panel from different perspectives, and each one of them will share what decentralization means to them, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the topic. Please take 30 seconds to introduce yourself, guys. Good morning.
Hi, everyone. My name is Xenofon Kontouris. I am the founder of Athens Labs, and I'm representing ENADBA here. ENADBA is an association that does advocacy and other poor man's lobbying efforts on blockchain and crypto assets in Europe.
Hi, I am Eleni. I'm a visual artist and in what we call traditional art world, and more recently an NFT artist.
Hi, I'm George Delkos. I represent Ourovoros. We're doing financial system auditing and smart contracts and whatever is related to blockchain. Very happy to meet you all.
Hi, I'm Fotis Tsiroukis. I am a PhD student in the University of Exeter, studying philosophy of open science, merging the studies of technology and science together with the humanities. And also have been an explorer in the Ethereum adjacent space of decentralized organizations for quite a while right now.
Hi, my name is Stergios Anastasiadis. I'm a programmer at heart. I've turned it into funding startups through Genesis Ventures, and we're looking to maybe start funding teams in the Web3 blockchain space. So here we are.
Amazing. Thank you very much for the intro. So I would like to start by diving into the term decentralization itself and see what it means for everyone, because the term is widely used in the internet, in the Web3 space, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be like different for every one of you, and every one of the speakers can give us their own opinion of what it means. Stergios, let's start with you.
Sure, I'm just going to try to keep it like really simple. The way I see this metaphor evolve is the next generation of the internet protocol as we know it today, that's powering almost everything that we do, to the point where we're able to actually drive economy of scale in a completely different way. And this way we can actually bust what we call the standard S-curve of making money, which is customer acquisition, make them happy, get as much as you can out of them in a centralized way, and then flatten the curve by trying to find ways to extract their data in somewhat non-good ways. So how do we flatten that curve and keep that going up so users have value? And wealth starts appearing again in meaningful ways.
Awesome. Fotis?
So decentralization has been a term that has been used a lot in the Web3 space, as you said before in the introduction, there's a lot of hype. There's a fear that it might be a vague term that we don't know where exactly it applies to. From my own perspective, because I come from a tradition of systems thinking, I see it as a property of systems, which might be biological, like the brain, it might be physical, social. We see decentralization and centralization as a pattern of how things are organized. And basically, decentralization means that there is no central point of control the system's behavior. So it's good to see at what level we're speaking of. And there can be the network level, there can be the level of wealth and who has access to it, which I think Web3 does a good job, but there are probably other perspectives on it. So I'll give it to the rest.
Thank you very much for it, George.
Yeah, me coming from a more technical background, and of course I'm a blockchain enthusiast and I love the technology. I wouldn't say that we should decentralize everything. I think that in many cases it is a buzzword. And for me, decentralization is just another tool to do things better. I think we should see it from that point of view. Like we can talk about like security, for sure. It enhances it. There is no single point of failure. But again, we have seen a lot of decentralized network being completely centralized. So I think we're pretty early. I think we are still in the picture where Jeff Bezos is still at his small office. I think that's the key point to understand about decentralization. We have a lot of way to go.
We're going to dive a little bit deeper into the security later, but Eleni, what decentralization means to you?
So decentralization in a wider context can mean so many things, but as an artist and a founder, so in the context of non-fungible tokens or NFTs, I see it as an opportunity to democratize the art world. And this starts with the distribution of control and ownership across a decentralized network.
Amazing, Xenophon.
For me to be, from a policy-making perspective, decentralization is a bit more specific of a scope. Specifically, we care about decentralized projects that are not controlled by individuals or a small team. They are largely automated in their processes and sometimes their governance. Perhaps governance doesn't even exist. So when I'm looking and I'm describing decentralization, it's more so on the application layer, and it's more so about governance. Is it automated? Is it controlled by a few people or many people or none? And I'm specifically avoiding the projects that state they're decentralized, but not really decentralized. For example, I don't consider any of the chains that have very few nodes or validators to be decentralized, and therefore anything built on top of them is not decentralized. So I'm trying to take a very specific point of view because it's crucial for differentiating the risks when producing policy-making endeavors, and so on and so on.
Thank you very much, and let's dive a little bit deeper into that. So now you already see, you get the picture that decentralization might mean a completely different thing to different people in the space, even though they're involved, in the industry where decentralization is the main word you're gonna see. So Xenophon, let's take it from here and discuss a little bit about the legal standpoint and see whether decentralization is actually something that is bound to regulations, and whether regulations would help decentralization find its fit, or it's something that restricts the development. And I would like also to hear from Stergios and George from a tech perspective as well.
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is that George is absolutely correct. We are very, very early still. I mean, we are at the Jeff Bezos desk, door as a desk phase, right? So we still have quite some time to go, and quite a long way to go. And there's been an effort for us to be decentralized through the industry, which hasn't been echoed entirely from existing regulatory processes that have tried to find liability in the teams behind the project. So many current regulations that are coming out are not focused on decentralization or any decentralized applications. The most current and most accurate regulation would be MiCA, the Markets and Crypto Asset Regulation, right? And that is a pan-European regulation that has been created specifically to limit the risk of ICO scams, of exchanges collapsing and with your money, and of other service providers that are centralized, that are producing something that you need to be participating in this industry. So with that in mind, DeFis and DAOs are not in the scope, and there's been no guidance whatsoever about how a compliant centralized system, a CASP in Europe, can move into a DAO or a DeFi. And there's not going to be any of that for the next 5 years. This is still a gray zone, which I like gray zones personally because they allow for innovation and the bleeding edge. But that's not easy when it comes to getting money from institutional investors and so on and so on. And of course, there's more regulations coming out that are not very helpful for AML reasons mostly, or at least that's the excuse sometimes. So I can go more into that, but it's going to be quite specific.
Thank you very much for the insight. I would like to hear from Stergios and then from George whether decentralization, from what you described and what we heard here, is something that's feasible from a tech standpoint, whether it's like doable technologically, put it simply. And George, I would like then for you to answer why the security in such system is important, and whether we are able to technologically create systems that we can trust without the human factor. Stergios.
I'll just resemble the example of how we went from the Internet of 1.0 hardware to hardware to the Internet of 2.0, which is all these protocols that got created. And that jump happened when actual real applications started becoming meaningful to us. And that's how I've learned how to build platforms. You just don't go out and start building infrastructure just for the sake of building infrastructure. you build use cases on top to actually see what would get adopted based on your thesis of where you want to go. So I think there's some fundamental things that have been happening in this space, specifically building out the crypto network infrastructure, modeling a first, use case of how you do the community type of engagement, and then obviously the tokenization and the currency, which is the reward element. So I think those technologies still need to evolve based on applications that need to get built out. I tend to think that quite a few of that stuff will be thrown out and rewritten again. That's kind of the nature of where we're going to go. So as someone that's kind of on the other side of the equation, I'd like to start seeing people develop actual meaningful applications that have these elements behind them to drive, value.
Thank you very much. And George.
Yeah, this is actually very interesting, because what I wanted to talk about is very shortly, I went to get a document from my daughter, excuse me for that, the other day, and gov.gr was down. Now I was really frustrated, as you understand. And I was thinking about why hasn't anybody just did a decentralized on nature network where it's centralized, it's controlled by the government. So we don't have these downtimes. A decentralized network, a set of nodes, even if one goes down, some other will provide you the information you want. So there you go. I wish I had a little bit more time in my life so I can build more stuff. But as we can see, decentralization doesn't mean that it should be 100% decentralized. It could be decentralized on the nature of the network, but it could be controlled decentralized from a central authority as the government. And I think this is the most important thing. We shouldn't be thinking, okay, let's build something just for the people. Governments can build decentralized systems, and they can build upon them and actually use the technology in benefit of the people, right? So we don't have downtime, so we have enhanced security. Nowadays, zero-knowledge proofs are coming in, and trust me, this is going to bring also a big change on what we have seen.
Amazing, thank you very much. Let's take it to some pragmatic discussion and talk about the benefits of the decentralization for society. I would like Eleni to give us an insight as an NFT artist, someone who uses blockchain technology on a regular basis, why decentralization is important for you. And
yes, so being an artist in contemporary society, and especially in Greece, is really tough. The sources of support are very limited. The art world is really tight, and the collectors are even less. So I saw in the NFT community an opportunity to change this. So I can have, or we, the artists, a direct relationship and direct correspondence with the collectors. We can, there are actually, I have pinpointed them. Yeah, the royalty mechanisms, which means that when an artist sells something and then the collector resells it, the artist keeps getting something percent. There is the ownership and control. You don't need any intermediates. You don't need galleries. You don't need 100 other representatives to represent you. You can represent yourself. Then there is the globalization. I mean, Greece is a very tiny country. You don't need to be present in all the events in all the countries and promote yourself. You can do it more easily and have an access in a broader audience. And then there is the experimentation part, which comes later and allows you to see the blockchain as a new medium, actually. So you can experiment with with dynamic NFTs, with so many ways of communicating your work to the audience.
Thank you very much. So for you, decentralization is important because you can tap into a broader audience, interact with them, and have a direct relationship with your fans without any third parties. Fotis, could you tell us, let's go into some of the implementation challenges and risks of creating such systems. I would like to hear Fotis' opinion from a social perspective, like what we should have in mind when we create these systems, because as you know, or you might know, blockchain systems are immutable, or at least they are built that way, so that anything that happens there, or anything that's recorded, it's not alterable, it's not deletable. So I think we should pay a lot of attention in how we build them in the first place. For this,
Yeah, and I think we should be thinking about the risks because they are already there. And as you mentioned, George, there's this aspect of it's not like some systems are by default decentralized or centralized. Is that you can have them on different levels. You can have an open network like the basic internet protocol, which enables any kind of interaction to be done on it. But we can build centralized corporations. You can build very megalithic structures on it. And I want to point out the fact that decentralization can lead to centralization. And if there is no mechanism to push decentralization back, it will emerge. For example, there's cases already in blockchain systems with Bitcoin mining, let's say, whose the whole mining operations got basically centralized to a few players who have facilities, who were able to buy like this huge GPU factories where they can mine Bitcoins. And there's also examples in Ethereum, such as token voting, where basically you can buy tokens and you can vote with them on proposals on what to do with a certain software, with a certain the decisions of a certain organization. But basically, what happens with this is that it leads to plutocracy. The ones that are already able to have the purchasing power will be the ones that will buy the tokens and steer the decisions in their favor. And I want to point out also that Web 2.0 started decentralized. The aspect of being able to edit rather than just read the web page and the platform that you're on, that you're able to interact with users, was something that was an aspiration of decentralization in the same way that we are talking about it. Wikipedia, for example, is a product of Web 2.0. File sharing platforms like LimeWire, Napster were also a product of this open source movement that was tied to Web 2.0, but it went wrong. The difference now with Web 3 and with blockchain-based infrastructure, especially with smart contracts, is that you can have the mechanisms for it to not get centralized. I don't know if I should go into...
this is really interesting, but I would also like to hear George's take on that. From a security perspective, what would you say are some challenges and risks these days? Are these systems something we can trust, or should we pay more attention in how we build them in the first place? Maybe Stergios, you also have to add on it.
Yeah, there's a very good and easy example for that. Like if you guys think about 3D printers, like they were made to do art, or like, I don't know, but they can do also guns, right? So it's the same thing. I think I might a little bit disagree with some points, but I think that the people have choices. Right now we have choices. It's your choice to join a decentralized network that works in one way, or it's your choice to join a decentralized network that doesn't work that way. If you want to be controlled, if your data wants to be controlled, you can use the internet as we know it. If you don't, you can use Tails, and you can go to Tor, and nobody knows who you are. It's all about, like, what is the security? The security comes with knowledge. If you know how to do things, I think this is the most important thing. Like, you can't really offer security to people who don't understand it. This is one thing, right? If you don't know what endangers you, or what are the problems with what you're using. First, I think we need education, and then people can decide on what do they want. Now, from a clear technical perspective, as I told before, I think in the blockchain space, we are really, really early. What does that mean? That we have some weird players, we have unethical people, we have people who are like shooting stars, they just want to make money and leave the space. But we are also seeing a huge advancement, like ZKs, that are going to be a major thing on the blockchain and in general in our lives, not only in blockchain. And in general, if you remember the society, if we can remember the society like a couple of years ago, people didn't know about non-custodian wallets. Right now, I have friends who don't know much about blockchain, but they have their own wallet just in case. They're hedging against their bank that way. So I think the more the knowledge we have, I think it will make us feel more comfortable with those systems, and more professional solutions will come out.
Thank you very much. Stergios, would you like to add on the tech perspective?
No, I'm just going to reinforce that the education is really important, because I think if I take a poll of people here on how many of them have authentication, let alone something more stronger, I'd say less than 20% of the people have any of that, and it's taken us a huge amount of time to get consumers to start thinking about those types of needs. So if you start straddling on top of that, more complexity with wallets and identity and how all that works, it's going to become extremely difficult to adopt. And so you need to really focus on education, better user experiences, so that you can get the adoption to happen. I'm not even going to go into the technical stuff, because today doing standard authentication is really simple, but everyone simply ignores it.
No, I totally agree with both of you guys. I think it's a matter of education and how we deal with this in a mindset perspective and not like from the tech. Xenophon, would you like to add something when it comes to legal? Are there any challenges? Well, I know there are plenty of challenges from a regulatory standpoint, but what would be some risks that we should consider? Is there the risk of, let's say, governments kind of trying to control this technology or over-centralizing it, and how we could mitigate that?
At the moment, it's not entirely clear where the divisions between decentralized risk is and centralized risk is, right? I mean, in finance, which is my focus more than anything else, much of the risks and problems that we're seeing in the crypto world have existed in the past with companies and corporations. So much of the risk that existed in the traditional finance space has been covered by existing regulations. So policymakers are looking into differentiating between the two risks and using existing applications of the law under a principle called same risk, same rules, same applications, to try to find the best solutions that are equal in their compliance requirements amongst everyone that's a participator in the industry. However, there are risks. There are specific decentralized systems and crypto assets, specifically technical risks that never existed before, which also provide amazing opportunities for the removal of other risks when it comes to centralized governance and all the other things that you might be seeing today as the Achilles heel of the industry. So for me, it is extremely important to create a framework of a standard for smart contract auditing and for technical development of all of these applications that are decentralized systems or so-called decentralized systems, so that they indeed do what they say. And many people, I mean, I guess most people can't read code, they can't verify the smart contract. They don't know if the thing that they've been told is the case. They can hear it from someone on Twitter, but it's not the same thing as a standard that is given or not given according to what they do. That would be the biggest risk that I'm going to highlight.
Thank you very much, and it makes absolute sense. Eleni, besides an NFT artist, like take this question maybe as a casual Web3 user. What would be some things you would expect from transitioning, let's say, from Web2 to Web3? If we talk about optimizing this process and taking the internet to the next level, which I think it's the same thing. Instead of saying Web2 or Web3 is just the internet becoming better, what would you, as an internet user or as a blockchain user, would expect from this technology?
It would be mainly education. I mean, create or raise awareness in between the users that already exist, but also for the people that are, I mean, for this to happen, for this change to happen. I think, whereas we say it is something accessible to people, it's not yet really accessible. I have seen it around me. Many people are interested in getting onboarded, but then there is this hesitation. They are not sure. They are not sure if they are safe, if the wallets are safe. They are not sure also about the security. They talk about like hacking, which is not so common, but it exists. And when you are not aware of something, you are more afraid. So, yeah, that's.
This makes absolute sense. And George, what would you suggest that are some optimized solutions to kind of, when we build this system, what we should keep in mind when transitioning from Web2 to Web3?
Yeah, first of all, I don't think that we should build everything on Web3. Like, there are some good systems on Web2, and they should stay there. First of all, because having a thought about it and saying that, hey, everything should be decentralized is not a good way. But if I can take one step back and think about how much we have achieved, because looking even at this thing that we're doing today, at this discussion, 10 years ago, decentralization, blockchain would bring up the question, hey, are you selling drugs on the internet? That would be the first thing. And we went from that to being something that is, I would say, kind of mainstream, right? You go into some place and someone has a wallet, or someone asks you about a token. Again, I think for us to go to the next level, first we as builders have to build better things. We have to create a community that is better. As engineers, security people like me, we should literally take out the bad people. And I wanted to make this comment, because we're talking a lot about scam on the blockchain, et cetera, and there is a good example of what happened to the banks in the States, right? Couple of weeks ago, right? Like, someone messed up there really heavy. That's always the case of the human error. Like, you can't avoid that, right? And people who supposed to be doing their job very well got really heavy bonuses too. So, yeah, this is a human nature problem, and I think you could help us about that on realizing. I think what we should do is step by step make it more understandable to the normal users. I think that's the key.
Fotis, would you like to add on that? And I already see a theme building here that education is pretty important for this transition, let's say.
I agree 100%. And there should be a more intentional stance on why exactly would you build a Web3 app to do, rather than just go with the hype and just build everything on it, which is what people have been doing in this market circle. And basically has led to what some people have termed the Web3 trap, was basically that it's a very interesting world. When you get into it, it subsumes you, and basically you see everything through this lens. So what happens is a membrane is created between the inside of the developers, of the people who are building organizations, of a diverse range of practitioners, and the outside. And there's no good communication. No good communication at all. And this is where things, the next steps should focus. And maybe like Web3 and crypto needs a better PR marketing strategy in the whole for the whole thing, because what does it signal to the outside? Scams, crypto bros, quick money, quick losing money, quick.
That's really interesting.
So change the signals of what is to the outside.
Let's see, guys. Like, I would like each one of you to take some time and talk about your favorite blockchain use case, whether you're already using it and you have like a favorite app or something you really enjoyed about this, or something you're waiting for, let's say in the next years, something you're looking forward to. Stergios?
Yeah, I'll stick to like, you know, what I aspire these systems to do, and I really love if engineers and people in spaces that know the technology to help the underserved communities of our world. I mean, there's in every country and every region, there's always someone in need, and today there's really only one way to get any help is go get a credit card or go get a loan. So you're basically stuck with, you know, on a definite amount of debt, and at the end of the day, you just are not able to, you know, solve your problem. And you know, it could be about facilitating and helping and building diverse communities. It can be helping the elderly, you know, building chairs where they can go up and down their home. It could be people migrating from different countries and helping them, you know, validate their degrees so they can get the right job. I think all that stuff is really important to help build our community and make it look better.
Thank you. This is really interesting, actually. Fotis, what would you say? What's your favorite DApp, let's say?
I would say I say a whole mechanism which is called public goods funding. It was basically Gitcoin is a very central organization that gave birth to it, essentially, and it is basically a way to let open source development and development that wants to go out of the classical, I'm a startup, I will get venture capital money, I will just do whatever they want me to do, and then I will merge with some other, just like get bought. So people discover there's another way, there's an exit to community, there's an exit towards like getting the value, crowdsourcing it from the people that are actually using your own software, and there's very interesting ways to fund this kind of stuff. So I'm very bullish on public goods funding, but I would also would like to see some more embody some more real world use cases, such as application in supply chains, something that escapes the internet, basically.
Nice. George, what's your favorite use case?
Yeah, my favorite use case is very simple. You're going to be amazed. I'm actually very picky with my money. And the first time I sent like a big transactions over to my mom, I was amazed that I could actually send her a lot of money when she was in need at 12 o'clock at night without asking about anybody. Now, this is a really good basis just to start with, you know. And given the nature of the banking system nowadays, I think the banking system should be having a closer look at these technologies. But I could go on for days. For me, identity is the most important thing. I think we're lacking there. The identity is a major thing in our lives. And I think a lot of scam, a lot of phishing, a lot of all those things, all those bad negative things of technology, of course, and human behavior could be solved with that. Additionally, I think that one thing that I would definitely want to see is like the government to actually build on top of blockchain. Let's forget about like the whole buzz of crypto and this and that. Just the technology. We take just the technology, the things that are beneficial about these things, and we start building on top of them for the government.
Eleni, what's your favorite blockchain use case? And we'll have to be a little bit faster. I think we already eliminated our time. Let's focus on one, Eleni and Xenophon.
Okay, nice. So I'll take this and actually make a comment on what you mentioned. So I will give an example that when the earthquake happened in Turkey recently, community members gathered together and started up this initiative that every artist would make work, and all the sales, all the income would go, or part of the income, you could, as an artist, you could decide that, could go to help the people that were affected from the earthquake. And actually, a lot of money gathered from this. Many people took part. Many artists took part in this. Many collectors took the collected works, and so this was a nice way to see that community exists, and yeah.
That's really an interesting use case. I agree. Xenophon, your favorite use case?
I think there's a lot of them. It's difficult to zoom in on one. Anything with DeFi or stablecoins like MakerDAO or they're my shit, sorry for my French. But the most interesting one that I can tell you is Ethic Hub and Ethics Token, which is a refi protocol. Okay, so what these guys do is they figured out that there's 3-digit interest rates in Mexico for farmers. That's huge. It doesn't allow them to build any growth or get any credit. So what they created is a two-sided pool, of funds. They give one side as lending and they generate yield, which covers the losses of the other side, which is given to farmers. And in between, you can use that token to buy the production of these farmers directly to the shop. Okay, so they are organic, they are efficient when it comes to supply chain, and they produce yield that covers their mission. That has never been possible in the past without blockchain and cryptocurrencies. So when we talk about this industry and decentralization, we talk about legitimate innovation that helps the people that are most in need of our help at the moment, and they do so while making us money. That's never been happened before, never going to happen without blockchain and crypto assets.
Thank you very much, and these were like some super interesting insights, and thanks everyone for attending. I hope you learned something about blockchain, and the point here was generally not just to promote this technology or kind of tell you, oh, how cool this is, this product or this chain, or this cryptocurrency, but to kind of see like people who are actually working in the industry from different fields, what's their perspective, why decentralization is important to them, and what are some of the things that they like about this technology. Thank you, everyone.
Ανεβάζετε stop.